This is heavy stuff. Let's all take a breath. I have a question for anyone over 30 in the room. What do you remember of the 1990s? I was in LA during the uprising. I have a whole list, so if you can't think of them, I'll just... Matthew Shepard. Yeah. Ellen coming out, right? MTV. Yeah. Dial-up modem, thank you. AOL. Those were on my list. Cell phones? When did cell phones start? Bad cell phones. Oh, bag phones. Okay. Pagers. Oh, right. So here's my list. The Soviet Union dissolved, ending the Cold War. Operation Desert Storm kicked off the Persian Gulf War against Iraq. Lech Walesa was elected Poland's president. Nelson Mandela was freed from prison and elected as South Africa's first black president. The World Wide Web opened to the public with the iconic sound of dial-up service. Is that running through your head now? The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. Dolly the sheep was cloned. Jurassic Park and Titanic hit theaters. Beanie Babies and Pokemon were big. So it was a decade of peace and prosperity, right? Well, lest we forget, the 1990s also were a time of great violence. The Oklahoma City bombing, the Branch Davidian siege in Waco, the O.J. Simpson murder trial, James Byrd Jr.'s lynching behind a pickup truck, Matthew Shepard's torture and murder in Wyoming, Nebraska trans man Brandon Tina's rape and murder, multiple school shootings, including Springfield, Oregon, and Columbine High in Colorado, and 13 schools in Michigan. Well, the list also includes the videotape recording of Los Angeles police officers beating motorist Rodney King. And the officer's later acquittal led to a 6-day riot. When you called me as your minister 7 years ago, we agreed to share a ministry that is explicitly anti-racist and anti-oppression. We affirmed, quote, our mutual commitment to addressing the systemic prejudices and biases, unquote, found within this congregation and in all of society. So when Connie brought to my attention the revelation that police officers in the 80s and 90s regularly claimed no humans involved to minimize the investigation of cases involving marginalized individuals like sex workers, transient people, and people of color, I said to myself, hells yes, thank you, let's consider that. So our first reading today by Alida Weidensee helped define that practice of no humans involved. I cannot tell you with any certainty that this practice does or does not continue today. But the systemic indifference, dehumanization, and unconscious bias are very much with us, often intersecting in various ways. What do murder, enslavement, rape, torture, and genocide have in common? Natalie Deffenbaugh, in our second reading, helped us see the commonality in that there often is a substantial imbalance of power and an abuser who dehumanizes the victim, rationalizing harm because they are, quote, less than human. Let me give you a riddle. A father and son are in a severe car accident. The father dies and the boy is rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. The surgeon looks at the boy and says, "I cannot operate on this boy. He's my son." How is this possible? His mother's a surgeon. Any other possibilities?
They're a gay couple?
Perhaps it's a same-sex couple. He has two dads. So pause and consider what assumptions you made first about the surgeon. Did you assume he was male?
White male, probably.
White male? Or about the parents? Did you assume a heterosexual couple? This is unconscious bias. And every one of us has it. We have unconscious biases because our brains evolved to prioritize survival and speed over perfect accuracy. We are wired, for example, to instinctively suspect things or others that are unfamiliar. And while most of the time our assumptions are correct, many times they are not. And often they lead to engaging in othering people, or prejudice, or discrimination. And there's plenty of material available out there about no humans involved and about unconscious bias, and I invite you to go do a little digging. There's a lot I was not able to squeeze into a 20-minute sermon. So thank you to Melanie and to Roy for riffing on today's title with various arrangements of Amazing Grace. It is such a powerful and comforting song. The term cheap grace is a theological concept coined by German pastor and theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He's the high-profile Lutheran minister who stood up to the Nazis until they killed him in 1945. In his 1937 book, The Cost of Discipleship, he defines cheap grace as the practice of accepting God's forgiveness and salvation as a free gift without any accompanying commitment to repentance, personal sacrifice, or obedience. And I have to say, this sounds on the surface strikingly like universalism. Today, we Unitarian Universalists hold in tension two ideas. One is the Universalist doctrine of universal salvation by grace, and the other is the Unitarian doctrine of salvation by character, first articulated by William Ellery Channing. The tension often is summarized by the joke that Universalists believe that God is too good to damn anyone to hell, and the Unitarians believe they are too good to be damned. Well, with little fear of eternal damnation, we religious progressives structure our lives and our actions in a commitment to making this world a better place, in the belief that what we do matters. And I believe it's true. Maybe even what we do matters to our own or others' salvation. Too easily, though, we let ourselves off the hook with the belief that in the end, all our transgressions will be forgiven. well, that's all well and good as far as it goes. But often we are unaware of our transgressions. We hold, for example, unconscious biases that in fact do harm other people and the planet without our even knowing it. And so there is no cheap and easy grace, but a necessary balancing between doing the right thing and giving ourselves a break. Which is where I find wisdom from figures like Dr. Maya Angelou helpful. She said that we should do the best we can until we know better. And then when you know better, do better. It's a compassionate, incremental view of our transformation and development. And so we come to realize that with greater understanding can come greater responsibility. We learned, for example, about missing and murdered Indigenous women 2 weeks ago. Today we learn about armed public servants wielding power and authority over others, systematically dehumanizing persons of color and other marginalized groups by claiming that no humans were involved when they very clearly were. What are some other examples of these racist policies and practices today? Imprisoning migrants based on skin color or the language they speak, gutting the Voting Rights Act, redrawing congressional districts to disenfranchise persons of color, changing other rules like voter ID requirements, just making it harder so that those mostly white folks in power can more easily stay in power when they already enjoy great advantages over challengers. When we learn about such injustices, we now have a moral obligation, or if it's easier, a moral opportunity to learn more about such racist practices, to recognize them in real time, and not only to stop them, but to disassemble the systemic indifference that makes them possible. When you know better, do better. I've said it before and I'll say it again, being Unitarian Universalist in this world is not easy. Many Unitarian Universalists today hold a vision of collective liberation. We affirmed it in our chalice lighting today. That is necessary for achieving the beloved community toward which we strive. It's the idea often associated with civil rights leaders like Fannie Lou Hamer, Maya Angelou, and Martin Luther King Jr. that none of us truly is free from oppression until all of us is free. Last week, I invited you to know thyself. When you learn you are causing harm, do better. Stop doing harm. And I know it is so much easier to say it than to do it. Learning and doing better by examining our biases are not always easy, and grace is rarely earned. But in my experience, learning and doing better, for example, by knowing where my assumptions come from, speaking and acting with greater clarity and humility, with empathy, compassion, and respect for all, these can help open the door wider for grace to enter. I've alluded in the past to my own or our difficulty empathizing with and dehumanizing of people of other political persuasions. When all sides are under stress and feel a need for greater control. Here's a quote by the Reverend Canon Dana Colley Corsello at the Washington National Cathedral last year. Let me define empathy. It is not a feeling. It is the ability to recognize and respond to the reality, emotion, and pain of others. Empathy is the ability to recognize and respond to the reality, emotion, and pain of others. It is putting yourself in one another's place, understanding their context, seeing things as they see them, even when it doesn't match your own experience. Empathy is not toxic, nor is it a sin. It moves us from understanding to action. And this is why the ability to empathize is a threat to those with a need to control. Natalie Deffenbaugh reminded us that perceiving other people as less than human is robustly associated with direct violence, leaving less support for helping behaviors, intergroup forgiveness, and reconciliation. She too invited us to practice humanity. Treat people as people. Heal their wounds and restore their dignity. In short, act as the principle of humanity requires. This is a long and hard, but not hopeless task. Dehumanization is changeable over time, she wrote, because it is shaped by history, culture, social norms, and psychology, as evidenced by the progress that has been made with civil and human rights. People are resilient, and harm can be averted if there's honesty about what's coming and those in power decide to act. Always, as always, she wrote, the main responsibility lies with those in authority to respect and ensure respect for the laws and standards they have set for themselves. Authorities' practice has improved how human beings treat each other over time. Our task is to reinforce that positive practice, to keep dehumanization at bay. And so we come again to the balance between doing the right thing and giving ourselves a break. Our sometimes internal debate between whether we ultimately are forgiven regardless of our actions, or whether our own and our collective liberation depends on our own words and our deeds. Discerning this balance might require us to consult those most gravely affected. It might spur us to consult a higher power, for the Spirit of life to grant us grace, to help root us in our values and inspire us to fulfill our aspirations. Or it might motivate us to consult our inner authority, to check our assumptions, to acknowledge and address our own biases. Maybe all of the above. Connie has suggested that we might co-host a community-wide workshop on unconscious bias, which I think is a great idea. If you have an interest in helping make that happen, I invite you to talk with Connie or with Susan Meyer, our social justice team leader. Generations will look back at the 2020s as we do the 1990s, and will judge the value and success of our words and our deeds. So in days to come, if and when something happens in our town, may we be prepared to defend the marginalized and oppressed, to build relationships of trust, to teach minds and touch hearts, and to change patterns of abuse when we see them. May we answer the call of love, of pluralism, and of justice. May we seek collective liberation, hold powerful people to account, and even up the balance of power. May we live and speak faithfully to our core principles and values with empathy, wisdom, and clarity. Blessed be and amen. And so, in the spirit of clarity and commitment, I invite you to join in the responsive reading in your order of service by the Reverend Julia Corbett Haymeyer. I'll begin. In the face of hate, in the face of exclusion, in the face of homophobia, in the face of racism, in the face of xenophobia, in the face of misogyny, in the face of demagoguery, in the face of religious intolerance, in the face of narrow nationalism, in the face of bigotry, in the face of despair. As Unitarian Universalists, we answer the call of love. Thank you all.